Hey there, my name is Megan and welcome to my channel, or welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing a book review for Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas. Birthday Girl is a contemporary romance book, which is a genre that I do not read a lot of. And if you are someone that watches my channel on a normal basis, this is definitely out of my comfort zone. So this review might not apply to the majority of my viewers because I don't read a ton of romance. In fact, the last contemporary romance I read was 4 years ago. I had to look it up on my Goodreads. I do enjoy a good dark romance now and again and romance fantasy, but when it comes to straight contemporary romance, I rarely read it. I have known about Birthday Girl. It's actually been on my Goodreads TBR for a long time because I've heard about it, I've seen reviews about it, and it did pique my interest. It just wasn't a priority. And I was just craving something light and fluffy, so I decided to buy it because my library didn't have it. It is the first book that I've ever read by Penelope Douglas, and it is a standalone. The way that I structure my reviews is I talk about the plot, the things that I liked, the things that I didn't like, and then I give the book an overall rating, so I will put timestamps down below. In Birthday Girl, we are following a dual perspective. The main perspective is Jordan. Jordan is 19 years old, she is in college, and she grew up very poor and kind of neglected by her parents, not so much abused, but just not feeling warmth and love. And she is dating this guy named Cole. And Cole just does not have his life together. He is the reason that they got kicked out of their apartment. He can't hold a job. He ends up spending all his money on drinking and partying, and he's just negligent towards Jordan. So once they get kicked out of their apartment, they really have no money to get a new one. So Cole asks his father if they can stay with them. And what we learn is that Pike, Cole's father, had him when he was 17 years old with a girl he went to high school with, that the relationship just wasn't sustainable. And he has spent most of his life trying to build a relationship with Cole, even though he's not a full-time parent. And Cole's mother is very toxic and just has been lying to Cole about what kind of father Pike is, so the relationship is very rocky. Pike, on the other hand, has spent all of his time pouring his resources into building his very successful construction business, so he has done quite well for himself. He is single, not married. Cole is his only child. And like I said, Cole and Jordan, our main character, move into his house. And unfortunately, there is an attraction between Jordan and Pike. And the two of them kind of have to deal with that as they are living together, as well as having Cole in the picture. And then the two of them do enter into a romantic relationship. And then the story follows their relationship, the dynamics between the two characters, including all of the conflicts that such a relationship would provoke. I think the whole controversy around this book was definitely the age gap between Jordan and Pike. So like I said, Jordan is 19 years old, so obviously she's an adult, but then we have Pike, who is 17 years older than her. Even in today's age, that would definitely, I guess, be looked down upon if someone who is 38 is dating someone who's 19, because you have to ask yourself, what could they possibly have in common? There are two completely different stages in their life. Pike has a son who's Jordan's age, and not only that, but his son dated her. There would just be a ton of questions surrounding, okay, is this Pike taking advantage of Jordan's inexperience and a little bit of immaturity? Maybe there's a power imbalance going on. Could he be exploiting that? So there's a lot of, I guess, questions and issues that this type of relationship would evoke from a community or people's families. And the author does a really good job at making a very, very complicated relationship that crosses lines at times, but then providing, from the character's point of view, justification for those actions. I'm not here to say whether such an age difference is good or bad. I personally am Pike's age, and the thought of dating a 19-year-old if I were single, just no. I don't see how I would have anything in common with a 19-year-old, like for a partner, like a life partner. So that's my point of view from someone who is in the same life stage as Pike is. It is not something that we don't see in situations in real life. I just think that it's uncommon, and also, like I already said, the fact that Jordan was so young. So now I'm going to talk about the things that I like in this book. So I actually was incredibly surprised at how well written both of these characters were. So we spend our time in the head of Jordan mostly, and then Pike. And these characters, when I mean that they were written well, they were very, very real. Penelope Douglas wrote these characters in a way that they were so relatable. And I felt what Jordan was feeling. I felt was what Pike was feeling. Like I was seeing from their eyes and actually experiencing what they were experiencing. Because sometimes when I'm reading books, I feel kind of like an outsider looking in. But with Penelope, just her writing was so good and her character development was so good that I was these characters. And because of that, I ate this book up. I was so invested in this story because I felt like I was a part of it. I don't think I've read a book with such well-written characters and character development. I couldn't even tell you. It was phenomenal in that regard. And then I like how she took a tough situation and just threw in the different morally gray aspects of it. Well, not morally gray, but just kind of like, okay, what would you do if you were in this position? Would you have a choice to make a different decision? For example, Jordan had options. She was able to move back home with her dad and his stepmother. Like I said, she grew up in poverty. They did not have a nice home. It wasn't safe. Her stepbrother was there. He just brought a lot of dangerous, sleazy people over. So Pike, when he was taking Jordan back to his house, was trying to keep her safe. But you kind of have to ask yourself, okay, Pike was feeling attraction toward her. He knew what was going to happen. He knew that he wasn't going to probably have self-control around her. So at that moment, I think as an adult, we have to realize, look, we can't save everybody. Life is unfair, and he just has to let Jordan make her own way through life. Even though he was trying to keep her safe by bringing her back home and allowing the relationship to develop the way that he did, he ended up hurting his son, Cole. And they already had kind of a fractured relationship. So I feel like Penelope did an awesome job with putting these characters in situations where they had a choice, but the choice that they made, just the repercussions added more challenges to the situation. I feel like at times Penelope really showed how the characters were flawed and how all of us are able to lose self-control at times. Because Pike and Jordan were adults, they really could have refrained from entering into a relationship, but they didn't. So I just like how Penelope addressed how human these characters were. And then we have like the actual romantic aspect of this book, and I thought that it was incredibly written because the angst that Penelope was able to use to build up to the two of them entering in a relationship was very, very well done. It was very addictive. The smut scenes were very well written. There are sex scenes in all types of books, like Joe Abercrombie books have sex scenes, and they are they are really gross to read. But she writes them in a way that's palatable and very seamless with the type of story that she's writing. As for the dislikes, there wasn't too many. There were a couple of times where I felt like Jordan was acting like a child, and I was like, okay, well, Pike should now realize that he's dating a teenager and she's going to act like that, and she was just demonstrating her immaturity. But then we would turn around and then Pike would do something where he was acting like a child, and I'm like, dude, you're 38 years old. Why the heck are you acting like this? So there were a couple scenes where I just thought both of them were acting really immature and silly, and it just didn't go along with how Penelope had written them earlier in the story. And then there were times where Pike was a little bit overpossessive and controlling of Jordan, and this was only in certain situations, but it just didn't mesh well with other aspects of his personality. So it's almost like she was writing a little bit of a different character, and it just kind of threw me off at times. Just things he would say to her, and it almost sounded like a father talking to a daughter, which weirded me out because they were dating. All in all, I really enjoyed Birthday Girl way more than I thought I was going to, especially considering I don't read a lot of contemporary romance, but I just fell in love with all of these characters. I loved being in their heads. I really loved going through their ups and their downs, times where they were happy and times where they cried, and I really felt for them. I loved how she created a situation where the characters were forced to make tough choices, and those choices didn't always have the best outcome. I loved the relationship dynamics between all of the characters. I loved the morally gray questions that arose from reading this and made me pause and think. And I was actually like sitting next to my husband, and I said to him, I think I was almost done reading, or I was done reading, and I could not stop thinking about this book. And finally I said to him, this whole damn thing is Cole's fault. It is the boyfriend's fault. If he had not been such a jerk off and been a responsible person and had not gotten them kicked out of their apartment, then they would not be in this situation. Jordan and Pike would not be in this situation. So in my head, I'm blaming Cole, even though, you know, there was a whole bunch of events that led up to what happening. I ended up giving Birthday Girl 5 out of 5 stars, and it made me want to read more of her books. Alright y'all, that is it for my review of Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas. Let me know in the comments if you read this book and what you thought of it, or if there are some similar books that you've read and want to recommend to me, and I will see you all in another video soon. Goodbye!